Welcome to Malcolm and We, heard exclusively on malcolmpresents.com, a streaming platform heard around the world and beyond, and sometimes even in Mexico. Uh, I think they want to put up a border, a sound border of Mexico, so you can't get any information. Oh, by the way, congratulations, the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. Or do you pronounce it Scheinbaum or Shinbaum?
My understanding is Scheinbaum. Everything I've heard has said Scheinbaum.
Yeah, Scheinbaum, I see it because it's a Jewish name, so Scheinbaum. But I've heard the announcers, on the air say Shinbaum, so I don't know whether that was a Latino derivation
Malcolm,
of
you're
it.
getting off tangent again.
Excuse me?
You're getting off tangent again already. So,
I am?
yes, go
What's
back
her?
to,
No, but that's the important thing, the big thing with her because she's a PhD in environment, and I think she could be very good for what's happening. But anyway, our guest, tell us who our guest is, Yana, and I will keep quiet for the next half hour. Huh.
well, Malcolm, I know you're lying there already, but thank you for finally getting back on target here. Yes, today we have Amerika Garcia Grewal, and she is an activist for legalization at the southern border, where people are trying to come to America to escape violence and brutality, the disastrous effects of the climate crisis, and for a better life. The Eagle Pass Border Coalition is fighting for this cause. And for those of you who don't know, Eagle Pass is in Texas and the temperature is up again, or rather continues to be, and activity and emotions are high. Today, we are hopeful that America can unpack all this stuff for us and explain what's happening. America, welcome and thank you for being here today. It's very timely that you are.
Yes, thank you, Yana, and thank you, Malcolm, for having me here. And I was just going to go check our temperature. We have been over 100 degrees nearly every day this week, and the expectation is it's going to be like this probably into October, if not later. So it is, the heat will kill you, and I say that with no exaggeration. But I really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, and I wasn't
Look,
just talking about the temperature outside. I was talking about the temperature of the emotions
of
and everything
course.
that's going on, and who says what, and who says what should be done, and ah, it's
Well,
endless.
let's get your location specifically because Eagle Pass is not one of the big cities that we know about. Where is Eagle Pass
Mhm.
located, let's say, along the border? And
Yeah.
what big towns
So,
are you?
yeah, mentally think about where El Paso is up at the very tip top. You know where that is?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been to
And
El
down at the
Paso.
bottom, you have Brownsville down at the bottom. Okay,
Yeah.
that's 1,925 miles. So start going south from El Paso and north from Brownsville. When you meet in the middle, you're at Eagle Pass, Texas. So we're about halfway down. This area is often referred to as the Middle Rio Grande area.
Mhm.
Upper, of course, being El Paso, and the Rio Grande Valley being the areas below Laredo. So we're 150 miles southwest of San Antonio, Texas. Most folks have not heard about any of the communities around us. It's about 2.5 hours to get to Laredo, Texas, which is due south of us. You may have heard of Del Rio, which is about 55 miles an hour's drive north of us.
Okay. Now, what is your background? How did you get into this whole thing with immigration and
Well, it was funny when I hear myself described as an activist because I don't feel like I did anything except say no. um, Quite literally just here in Texas. I grew up here in Eagle Pass, Texas. I graduated from high school in Eagle Pass. At the time, we didn't have a four-year university in Eagle Pass, so I went to Southwest Texas Junior College, and then I left to get my four-year degree, and then I got a master's degree, met my husband, and we spent a number of years many places other than Eagle Pass, Texas. But COVID happened and it became a lot harder to travel from one point to another. But also, my parents were in a very serious car accident in 2020. My parents also contracted COVID in 2020 and then again in 2022. And when I saw them again after COVID eye to eye, I was like, oh my gosh, that they just there'd been such a change in their health. And so my mother had a surgery in July of 2022. So I came back, have laptop, will travel, thinking that I would, spend my time between here and there. And to my surprise, things were happening in Eagle Pass that I said, that's not cool. Like that's not on. We can't do that. We're Americans, act like it. Um, and I found other people that shared my thoughts. In fact, I found people who'd been saying that for longer than I had in Eagle Pass. And that group was the Eagle Pass Border Coalition. They began in 2017 as part of the greater Rio Grande No Border Wall coalitions. You'll see them in Laredo, in the Rio Grande Valley, in El Paso, Texas. And they're a response to Trump saying he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it, which he didn't build a wall, and Mexico most certainly did not pay for it. But this group began as an environmental activist group, an owners' rights group, a community rights group. And what's happening here in Eagle Pass is that access to the river and environmental issues are just completely intertwined with human rights issues and what we're calling immigration rights. You simply can't pull them out. So Trump left office, and in 2021, Biden became president. And in March of 2021, the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, began what he calls Operation Lone Star. To date, Operation Lone Star has now spent more than $11.2 billion. That's billion with a B. And thousands of people have died. I would say as a direct result of Operation Lone Star. We now have what they're calling a forward operating base, Camp Eagle, here in Maverick County. Initial numbers said $400 million to construct it. I noticed that they did not say how much it actually cost at their press conference on Friday, but we do have documents showing that Camp Eagle is costing the state of Texas $14 million a month to run. So in addition, Operation Lone Star has put up miles and miles of concertina wire. Millions have been spent on the wire alone. And they put up thousands of containers along the Rio Grande River. And they barred people like me from walking our dog at the river, flying a kite, going fishing. The only public boat ramp here is completely inaccessible to us. And, oh, by the way, people are dying. So we don't have good numbers on that.
What exactly is Operation Lone Star?
Operation Lone Star is an initiative by the state of Texas. They say that there is an invasion here on the southern shore, and they say that it's worth spending every single dollar possible in order to fight it. In order to make that happen, the state of Texas has declared a disaster. They're bypassing procurement processes. They're bypassing the city government. They're pretty much bypassing every single bit. They talk about upholding the rule of law, and yet they trample over it, over environmental regulations, over city ordinances, over federal law, in order to implement Operation Lone Star.
Isn't immigration a federal laws and not state laws? Can the state regulate the immigration?
Well, the thing is, this isn't really about immigration. It's about exactly what you brought out, federal law and state law. So what can the federal government do, and where does their ability to regulate stop, and where does the state right begin? And it's not just immigration that's that question. It's things like the CDC. Can a federal agency shut businesses? Can a federal agency require mask coverings? The state of Texas went to governor-appointed judges, and they said, we want to say that masks are not required. And the state of Texas, the courts in the state of Texas said that the state of Texas, the governor of Texas, can basically do whatever they want and override the federal law. So we're seeing that with that. We're also seeing it in abortion. The President of the United States has said that the Federal Mail Service will deliver all mail to all addresses in the United States. They're not going to intercede. They're not going to stop anybody from receiving mail. And I believe, I think I saw something that said that more than half of the abortions in the United States are now occurring as medical terminations, as pharmaceuticals that were received in the mail. The governor of Texas has tried to stop that, and he cannot. It's generally recognized that the mail service is a federal institution. So again, immigration, it's generally recognized, is administered by the federal government. And Governor Abbott is challenging that with what we're seeing here. And another area that, yeah.
Challenging in a military way? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, challenging in a military way. On January the 10th, when Customs and Border Patrol officers were escorted out of Shelby Park, the city park here in Eagle Pass, there were soldiers that barred the gates and also stood in the boat ramp. And they published pictures on Twitter and on Facebook and a number of places, kind of saying, "Come and take it" to the federal government. So there is, yes, they are standing up to the federal government with guns, saying, we're here and we're not going to leave. The state of Texas is choosing to enforce some federal regulations, but again, they're picking and choosing. They're doing whatever they want to do, and they're not observing the international right to claim asylum. I've actually seen with my own eyes, people are coming up and asking to be reunited with their families. We were on the river on August the 1st of 2023, and a little boy had gotten ahead of his parents. He was on the shoulders of a younger man. And so the little boy was able to get up on the bank around the same time that our kayaks got up on land. The father shows up later. He has an infant strapped to his chest, and he's like, "That's my son. I want to be with my son." So, and the National Guard, Texas National Guard, under the control of under the control of the Texas governor, said, "No, no, no." Luckily, that particular day, we had an attorney from the ACLU who said, "That's family separation, and National Guard specifically cannot do that. Open up this wire." And would it have happened if we'd not been there? I don't think so. So these are things that I'm seeing with my own eyes, I'm hearing with my own ears, and unfortunately, that includes dead bodies in the Rio Grande.
I recognize
just lying there.
Yeah, so on November, no, I don't think it was November the 18th. I think it was December. I don't remember the exact date in December. We had an art professor who was putting together a photography exhibit, and we went down the Rio Grande River, and he pointed out to us a body, which we then contacted the funeral homes, and who then contacted the sheriff and made sure the body was retrieved. But yes, so we began at 7 in the morning. So sometimes there are places on the river that we're the first to have gotten there, and we'll be the first person to see something. And so in this case, as the day warms, if somebody has drowned, the gas is also warm and their bodies comes up. So the person probably would have died about 3 days ago.
It's a horrible situation. But now getting back to the core topic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree that our immigration is totally out of whack, and that we are accepting a lot of people who are just walking over the border, that there is no control. And we don't know where formerly people, it was never good because but the question is now it's sort of like ran amok. There are people walking over who we don't know who they are, and they disappear within our country. And they don't necessarily have to be Latino. They're Latinos. They're Chinese. They're Europeans. They're from the Middle East. So we don't know the intentions of these people, because right now we're in a weird situation.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend that we control it and still be?
Yeah. So I have 2 points to this. First is that there are a lot of people around the entire world who are on the move, and regular pathways for migration, regular migration, is a much larger component of what's happening in the world. Irregular migration, people entering between ports of entry, is actually a very small part of the total number of people on the move. So that's the first thing I want to add. The second thing I want to add is that if conservative politicians are so scared about it, why aren't they funding the very specific request that this administration has made over and over and over again. There was a bipartisan bill that was proposed and it shot down in a couple of hours. So I'm not a fan of the current executive order that went out on Tuesday of this week. However, I will say that there were a lot of things in the other bill that would have addressed these very specific concerns that you're bringing up. So, for example, how do we know who's coming into the country? We can do a DNA test. If we had the money, we could process that. And then if a person was deported back to another country and they came in someplace else, Border Patrol officers anywhere in the United States could immediately say, you tried this before. I know who you are. I have the DNA results to show it. You're out of here. The funding for DNA tests has been shot down over and over again. One of the reasons that people are trying to get in the United States is because of the asylum case backlog. If you're able to come in and you have a credible fear, you're referred to an asylum judge, your case may not be heard for 5 to 8 years. And there are some people who do not think that their asylum case is going to be approved, but they want that moment to rest. They want those 5 years to figure out what next. They want those 5 years to live. So you would not attempt to sell off everything you own, to attempt the Darien Gap, to spend 3 months on foot coming across a hostile country if you had another choice. But if you have a hope of just a few years to get your feet under you, to save some money, that's more than you have right now. Now, if we had higher numbers of asylum judges and asylum processing officers, if people were being heard in a matter of months, if not days, then they'd be like, is it worth all of this effort if I'm only going to be in the U.S. for 30 days? They might think about it. But that funding request was turned down.
I'll agree with you, and I have one word for why the funding request was turned down and the bill was turned down. Politics.
Yes, the problem is more valuable to politicians than the solution is.
Right,
so it's kind of like the infrastructure. They voted against it, but they take their picture in front of the bridge.
Right, because I'll tell you this.
Explain that to me. Why is perpetuating the problem so good for them?
Mm-hmm. Well, simple, because, may I interrupt with that for a minute? Because the Republicans are running on the fact that Biden cannot control the border. Mm-hmm. And in essence, he cannot control the border, and people are coming in. If there would be a solution to it, if the bill was passed, they cannot run on that, because they would say, okay, we're doing something, and it was able to combine Republicans, Democrats, and pass this bill. As long as he doesn't, I would say the two main things that he is facing a crisis with is immigration and inflation.
Yeah. So the phrase open border is actually, it dates back to the Obama administration. And it was basically a racist knee-jerk reaction to having a black man in the White House. And what we're seeing is, more racist reactions to what's going on in the world. And the problem is much, much more valuable to them than the solution is. And it's when you scare somebody, you actually change their behavior patterns. And so they're not just coming in here, they're not coming in with numbers. What I just told you about how regular migration, tourism, business visas, everything else, that's so much more part of migration than this little bitty piece over here called irregular migration. They don't lead with those facts. They tell you fentanyl, even though the numbers show over and over again, fentanyl comes in through ports of entry. The people who are prosecuted for fentanyl smuggling are U.S. citizens between the ages of, I think, 18 and 28. That's generally who does it. It's not always. There are people my age, there are people who are non-citizens, but fentanyl almost always comes in through a port of entry with a young American who's trying to raise some money. They don't tell you that. They scare you. And once you're scared, your front brain stops working, your back brain, your amygdala, your lizard brain is like, protect. There's not enough. And so we don't think about how, as humans, we have been so successful as, a species because we care for each other. Instead, we think about, do I have enough? And we start to do things like hoard toilet paper. That's the COVID, right? Wrong scare. But we start to do things that are actually against our best interests, and are contrary to who we are as Americans.
Yeah, well, a big scare that I see is if you listen to our former president talking about immigration, and he's talking about how all the uh, undocumented immigrants, they are prisoners.
Hmm.
They let out their
Yeah.
prison, they let out their insane asylum. So we get the crazies coming in there, and we get the gangbangers, and we get people doing the dope. And he said almost like Nazi Germany, they're going to infiltrate our blood.
Hmm.
That they're
Poison
going
our blood.
to poison our blood.
Hmm.
And there are people who listen to him, who
Yeah.
believe him. So to me,
You
this
know,
is
and that
unbelievable.
is
The America.
amazing to me. I do not understand why they're listening to a convicted felon. Like, I don't get it. Before, he was a failed TV, reality star. I'm like, you're known by the company you keep. Why do you want to hang around with him? But I heard once that he's a poor man's idea of what a rich man looks like. He's a weak man's idea of what a strong man looks like. And unfortunately, people are still listening to the convicted felon, and I don't think that the additional cases that are coming down the pipeline are going to change them any. And so
They're not
I'm
going
not going to,
to.
yeah. So
They're
what
not
I
going to be. They're
actually
not going to be.
like.
They're not going to be tried. That's a problems.
There's the possibility of that. So what this here is actually, it's called a spectrum of allies, and it's a pie. It's half of a pie shape. You're talking about things like your active allies, your passive allies, folks who are neutral, passive opponents, and active opponents. And a lot of the folks that support, number 34. I used to call them 45. Now I call them 34. A lot of folks that support 34 are over here in active opponents. They are out there. They are talking. They're not checking facts. They're just repeating what they can pull out of the word soup that the orange man, says. Wish you wore an orange suit, but we're getting there. We're getting there. You've also got the passive opponents. So we're not going to focus on these guys over here, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to talk to the passive allies, the folks that say, well, I don't know what's going on there. I don't like it, but I'm just not going to get involved. I don't want to get attacked, at the dining room table by my uncle. I don't want to say anything about it. What I want to do is I want to give them the talking points so they can move from being passive allies into being active allies. I want to go and say, people are dying here in Eagle Pass, Texas, that shouldn't be dying. Some of them are people on the move, but some of them are National Guardsmen who committed suicide because what they're dealing with is horrible. It is past inhumane. It's moving into monstrous. We also have Customs and Border Patrol officers who have incredibly mental health loads. We have our first responders from the fire department, the sheriff's department. I want them to know about the millions of dollars of damage that's happening on our highways from high-speed chases, because we have so many law enforcement here that they'll chase. They will just go. And there was a horrific day. My parents were actually driving to a doctor's appointment. We heard that a car that ran away from a traffic stop slammed face first, head on into another vehicle that had an elderly couple in there. And it was on the route my parents were taking to San Antonio. And I'm like, no news is good news. No news is good news. Surely, if I'm hearing this news, I'm not hearing it. And also, I knew that people would be traveling away from the border. I knew my parents were also traveling away from the border. I figured my parents were okay. But still, we had 8 people that died in a single incident. And Human Rights Watch says that number is, oh my goodness, I have to look it up. I believe the number is approaching 200 people who've died in high-speed chases. There's all of the property damage that happens from high-speed chases. I have a friend, she had $20,000 of damage done to her fence, and all she got was a business card from the sheriff's department that said, the damage happened in the pursuit, in the investigation of a crime in progress. we're sorry, you have no resources.
Yeah, but
If the person has insurance, their insurance does not pay because there was a crime that was being occurred, or if it sorts out, maybe down the road you can get something. But the individual's insurance does not pay, and sheriff and Customs and Border Patrol, Department of Public Safety, police, none of them pay for any damage that occurs to you.
yeah, excuse me, that happens every day in Southern California. I live in Los
Mhm.
Angeles,
Yes.
and there's always a police chase. Our show is
Mhm.
interrupted, and for some reason,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating thing because I watch it. It's sort of like
Mhm. Yeah.
the thing is, I see it till the end.
Mhm.
Some people think it's like watching paint dry,
Yeah.
but you're waiting either a shootout or an accident.
Yeah.
But now on a day-to-day basis, how do
Mhm.
you disseminate the information? How do you try to affect legislation or affect people? Do you speak to legislator, or are you trying to gather the people to write letters and protest, or vote your governor out?
So in answer to your question, yes, we are working on every single one of those things. One of the things that we're doing on Tuesday, June the 11th, there is a border hearing. There's a state of Texas Senate hearing on the border. It's not on the border. It's going to be in Austin, Texas. And so what we've done is we've actually contacted community members, and I'm not sure how much of this shows in your video, not that it matters for a podcast,
I can see it.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
The border,
So
the border is beautiful.
yeah, we've actually met with a number of different community members, and they've given video testimony. And so we're working with churches in the Austin area who are going to come up. They're going to have printouts of our community members. They're going to have the transcripts of what they want the legislature of the state of Texas to know about, and they're going to say, shame on you for not making video testimony available. We're not driving 5 hours up for 2 minutes of testimony and then 5 hours back. But they're going to give testimony on our behalf, because thankfully we have support. But yes, we have done petitions, we have done protest marches, we've done protests here in Eagle Pass, Texas, also in Austin, Texas. We've filed complaints with the Department of Justice. There have been lawsuits. Jesse Fuentes here in Eagle Pass filed the first of the lawsuits against Operation Lone Star, and what they're doing in Eagle Pass with the river buoys. And that was swiftly met by a lawsuit from the Department of Homeland Security. Sorry, the Department of Homeland Security filed against with Shelby Park, but I believe it was the Department of Justice acting in its own interest, filing about the buoys. So we've consulted on amicus briefs that were sent up to the Supreme Court, sent to federal court, about what's happening here. So pretty much everything that you've mentioned, yes, I or somebody here in Eagle Pass has done or will do to work on change.
How do we get into, how does someone get in touch with you? Do you have a website or?
Our Facebook page, fb.com/EP Border Coalition, and there's a telephone number on there that goes to four of us. One of us will try to answer it, or at the very least respond to the text as quickly as we can.
And how do you get to sleep each night? It seems like you have such an enormous task.
Well, so one of the things is knowing that we cannot do it all. So the state of Texas has spent $11.2 billion on Operation Lone Star, and we are a handful of volunteers doing the best we can. So the nice thing about something so big is we can individually say, I'm good at this, and we can work on it, and there's plenty of room for us to work.
And how do you
Yeah,
get funded?
usually the sleep is a sleep of utter exhaustion.
Yeah.
So,
How do you get funded?
so we are working on that. We have a financial agent who accepts donations on our behalf, and so we've done that. But a lot of it is friendships and associations. So we are not sending money to go to Austin, Texas. Instead, we're sending emails and digital files. And the church has a commercial copier, and so they're printing things out using resources they already have. we're printing on old bed sheets, taking old house paint and printing on old bed sheets. And, if you look at some of our banners, those are done. We also had banners donated to us. Oh, this isn't it. So I actually have postcards. They're not at hand, but the poster boards that we carried in Austin, we turn around and we cut those up and they become postcards, and we send those to everybody. We'll sit down before a meeting starts. Kind of the chit chat that you and I had before we got started. If we have a meeting before it gets started, we pass those out and collect them. So yeah, we have a number of churches that support us. They receive donations on our behalf. We've got a financial agent that receives donations. But for the most part, we're just like folks that live here that say, hey, this sucks. Someone needs to do something. We look to the left, we look to the right, we're like, oh crap,
It's
that's
us.
me.
Well, you
Well,
remind me of you guys remind me of like Atlas holding the world, because this is such a huge task you're trying, and I wish I had the energy to do what you're doing.
well,
Yeah.
Malcolm, you are providing this platform,
Yeah,
and so that's
well, yeah.
good.
I provide hopefully communications that eventually that millions of people will see. As a matter of fact, if you could just email, when our show goes on, Malcolm Presents, it's on Malcolm Presents, Malcolm and We. Tell your friends about it. If you have groups or people from your organization that want to do a show, speak to Yana, because she's the associate producer doing mainly the booking, and she does a yeoman's job. And we should have you back to see what happens with
Oh,
the new
we should, and
the new
we'll help you because this is exactly what we, the world, likes to get involved with. This is totally grassroots. I mean, it's very grassroots, but it's so everyone has an opinion on it, and so it's
yeah, but there's
the
so
way
much.
the way you mentioned it, it just seems like, hey, that's doable. We could do that. So it's great.
There's so much misinformation out there, and
Yes.
and people are throwing, and you get the anti-everything people that are against immigration, and you get the anti-Latinos, you get the anti-Asians, you get the anti-Muslims, you get the
Well,
anti-Semitic.
and I'll hear people say, well, I came the right way. And I really want to remind them that asking for asylum is internationally protected. Asking for asylum is the right way.
It
And
is a right.
anybody who says, well, I'm talking about the guys who are doing these other things. It's like, yeah, we had a bill asking for money, asking for more officers. It was there. It had bipartisan support, and it was tanked. If you really cared about it, you would be on the phone calling your senator and saying, I want money for DNA tests. I want money for more officers. But they didn't. They
Yeah,
let them do their political charades.
and the two senators from Texas are. I don't think they're much help. Isn't there an election coming up for senatorial
I, is it
this
Ted
year?
Cruz again already?
Yeah, I think it's
I think so. Yeah. So I think Allred is going up against him. So yeah, I'm. These things are out there, and it's like, okay, what is my sphere of influence? What can I have an effect on? So Ted Cruz is not going to pay any attention to me. He hasn't paid attention to me his entire tenure, so he's not going to pay any attention to me. So I'm not putting any energy into that. I'm putting my energy into, for example, going to the UN. They had an international dialogue on migration, and so I went there. Did you know that Amerika Ferrara, the star from the Barbie movie, is the new Goodwill ambassador for the International Office for
Ooh.
Migration? Yes, I did not meet her though. But
Uh, well, you know
change
what?
that.
It got to start somewhere, and it's the power of people like
yeah.
you, and there
Mm-hmm.
are other people like you too,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
who we want to
anyway,
that's what we
our
want to
time
get
is up,
to.
but thank you very much. And I feel your pain. And just keep up the good work, and don't try not to get too exhausted, because it's gonna take a long time. It's not overnight. I mean, it has taken a long time, but again, that's what America is, part of everything. My background is, my grandparents were from Poland and Russia, and I'm married to a Latina that became an American citizen. And, this is what the world is all about. And that's what this country is all about. And that's why we built, and we just have to make sure we have the right people in government. But anyway, again, thank you very much.
Thank you for
And
having
you
me.
and you are listening to Malcolm and We, heard on malcolmpresents.com. Stay tuned next week for another guest. I don't know who it is. Do we know our guest yet? We'll get.
It's
Anyway,
always
our
a
guest is,
fun mystery.
as they say in Brooklyn, wer weiß, who knows? Have a great week, and for you specifically, try to keep cool because I hear the temperature in Texas is going way up
It's a little warm.
into triple digits, and I don't know if your grid system has improved, but I remember, I think it was last year, a few years ago, where it broke down and everybody was, in dire shape. Anyway, bye guys.
Thank you.